And good morning, everyone. I want to introduce you to my special guest today. Cara and I have a little history on this, so we'll get into that in a moment. I'm joined today by Cara St. Louis, and we're going to talk about the Fae, but I can guarantee you we're going to go all kinds of different places with this conversation.
Yeah, always. Always.
Thank you for joining me, Cara. How are you doing?
I'm so happy we finally got this going. I mean, Danny's not kidding. It took us 3 months to get this together and I'm just going to say it, from outside interference, and that's up to and including being chemtrailed into illness. You know, London is drowning in upper respiratory right now, and Danny's got the same issue right now. I mean, I'm just like.
We were just joking before we went live. It's just like, I'm so congested. I'm just going to hopefully not have to blow my nose in the middle of this. We have interference.
Yeah, constant.
We'll put a little side note here on interference, because people can take the opinion and be like, oh, you're just exaggerating. Cara and I have been trying to do this interview for 3 fucking months.
Yeah. And
we
sometimes
have had technical failure after and it'll be like, her computer went down, she got it back from the shop. The next day, my computer down, I got it fixed. The next day, her computer went down again, she got it fixed. Then we couldn't get internet. Then it was like her computer wouldn't talk to my computer, so everything that could possibly go wrong has gone wrong. Interference, major interference.
Yes, and mostly obviously, clearly that's AI interference, which has to do. Danny is very extraordinarily outspoken and radical and all that, so I know she has her own enemies, but I have mine too, and she's not kidding. I think she's even being kind, because I would get my computer back and she'd get on and she'd go, God damn it. And hers 5 minutes later would have gone out. I mean, it's not even the next day.
No, it was like just like this for 3 months. Everything. Yeah. We were supposed to do it last week, and then you got sick.
But here we are.
We're here.
Here we are, and I'm extraordinarily grateful. First of all, I want to say a couple of things. I've been, sort of in, out, and around Danny's sphere for a long time. We are kind of the same chick in a way. Which is great. We're both very outspoken and very in your face, and she's doing some really, really good work. And I have spent the last 3 or 4 months following up all of the gorgeous work that she's done on endocannabinoids, and it has been mind altering and releasing, and it is opening, not just for me, I'm not meaning just me at all, but those of us who are spreading her work, it's like opening doors to prisons, to physical prisons, and it's going like wildfire. I don't want to get into because cannabis comes into the face story.
I just gonna say, and we'll get there. We're gonna get there. We're gonna get there on this. So I want to dig in immediately on your work on the Fae, because I've had the opportunity to actually preview all of the work that Cara is about to launch, and the Fae story, especially your first volume. There's some stuff in there that was like, oh. So
you remind me as we go.
Give us a little. Let's start at the beginning. I want to talk about this story of the Fae in Ireland.
Yeah. This Ireland is where you pick up the clues. You know, you're always looking for a thread in everything that you do. And if you can just yank the right thread, it all comes tumbling out. And Ireland, or at least, yes, let's just say Ireland. Ireland is where you can pick up the thread of the Fae. I'm convinced, as a few people are, that that is where it all starts. Now, okay, let me just start how I came to it, because that will help me launch. Yes. As we all do, we all pick up the thread that helps us get into the narrative. For me, it was my mom's death and chemtrails and then electromagnetic weapons and blah, 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 blah. This is where tons of us start because they're visible. You can look up and you can see them. So thankfully we have that clue. And then as I worked my way through the whys, wait a minute, how come we're not cottoning on to all this stuff? It became a deep research into social engineering. This is the path that we all follow, the social engineering. Why? And then the question is, the absolute obvious question is, why us? Why us? Why us in particular? And as it turns out, gang, we are that special. As it turns out,
strangely enough,
we really are not the drivel that they're trying to convince us that we are. In fact, we are extraordinary. We are unique in the universe. My view and my position has been and always will be that the human imagination is and I'm not the only one saying this, the human imagination is the translator between the morphogenic field, which is pure potential, and the material plane. We can do that. How can we do that, Danny? Well, let me tell you, because we are the descendants. We are the descendants of the original seed race, which I call the Fae. It's what they call themselves as well. If they were going to call themselves anything, it would be the Fae. Why do they call themselves the Fae? Well, and I'm just going to babble, and you're going to stick questions in, and it's going to be a great conversation. But the way I spell that is F-A-E, and A-E used to be one letter. It used to be one letter. Do you remember? So beautiful, so beautiful, that letter. Yeah. And that's called ash. That letter itself is called ash, A-S-H, and Yggdrasil was an ash tree. Do you see?
Oh.
How gorgeous is that as a clue?
Oh, very interesting.
Yes, Yggdrasil was an ash tree. So that AE has now been separated and taken apart. That's a very Draco maneuver.
Yeah, separated, divided.
Divide everything. The Fae, okay. The first bit of visual evidence that what I've sent to Danny to view and a few other people is actually the DVD that I finally put together, which is the culmination of a couple of years of work. I think the first time I ever mentioned the word Fae was on Bases 45 Part 4, and only because Miles made me. I wasn't really ready to talk about it, but so many people are super interested in getting a hold of that concept and running with it. As soon as I said it, suddenly everybody was talking about the Fae. Only they were kind of making it up as they went along, Danny. They didn't know what the hell they were talking about. They just knew that it was a pretty word. It fit right into their like megalithic stuff, right? And clearly it was coming on. So they had to get it. Even Graham Hancock has talked about the Fae since then. Everybody.
Oh, yeah, that's bizarre. Okay, so let's go.
Okay.
Who are the Fae? Because this one, and I'm going to give my own little aside when we get into this, because of my own research that's going in completely different directions.
It's all debatable. It's all debatable. It all has to stay organic and debatable.
Yeah.
Because as soon as you fix it, it's dead. And as soon as you fix anything down, nail it down completely, it dies. It's scleroticized. And I can't think of anything that has to stay more organic and more debatable and more egoless in the sense that we're, using that word, which you're quite right. It's completely bastardized, that word.
Yeah.
Is that it has to stay organic. And my views have changed about the Fae because they have to. They have to, as I change and as I get more information and all of that. So anyway, what Danny has asked me is, who is the Fae? Well, as of today, I will tell you that my conviction, if that's not too solid a word, is that the Fae are our first seed race past source. Now, there was a period of time, just interjecting this, when my narrative my narrative is always, as everybody's, is always trying to be dictated. It's always trying to be guided by a source that doesn't want an actual, real narrative out there. So the first thing I was told was that there was source, there was an organic AI, what? And then there was the Fae. And I thought, and the story was that Source created an organic AI to try out different options, different versions of Earth. And that never set well with me anyway. I thought, what the hell does that even mean, organic AI? So I had to go sort of through getting rid of that. And in fact, what it is it's Source and then Fae. Fae came to this incarnation of this planet, Earth now, which has had its own incarnations. And they were tasked with establishing the electromagnetic creation system on this planet, meaning they set down the system of ley lines. And I would say
they came from elsewhere.
They did come from elsewhere. Now, see, there's a good question, Danny, because there is some evidence, and good evidence, etymological evidence, that they actually came from a planet. Now, the planet was called Fae. It was the bottom left corner of the Big Dipper, which is actually in front of Ursa Major, not too far from the planet Draco. But that's a different story, isn't it, from this idea that they came in, according to the bardic tales in Ireland, which I consider to be initiation stories. They are layer, 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 layer. According to those tales, they simply came from a nearby universe, whatever that means,
But it's this piece that you're bringing up now, because of course we've watched through history, and the church guides history. The church controls history. So, for example, the original translations of these bardic tales and some of these stone writings, etc., were manipulated to represent a story that the church could swallow, or the church would allow the people to swallow.
Right.
Now, what we're seeing, and we're seeing massively in the last couple of years, is the narrative is being exposed. So we have things like, for example, I don't know if you've seen him, and his name has gone right out of my head. He was a biblical translator hired by the Vatican to retranslate the original 5 books of the Bible.
Yeah, no, I haven't seen him.
Oh, and what he came out and said was, everything you've translated in the Bible is wrong.
Yeah. It's all Draco bullshit.
Aliens coming to the planet. It's about DNA, genetic manipulation. It's about cloning. It's about all these things. And of course, needless to say, he probably got fired by the Vatican for saying this shit. Yeah. We have these narratives. We've got things like the stuff that Cliff High brought out, and several other people, about Antarctica. And what's the book called? Genesis Antarctica, that is kind of labeled as fiction because that's the only way they could put the information out.
Right.
And yet again, it's all these tombs written, all these books written, and again, it outlines, no, not this creation story that biblically is told to us by the church. It's aliens coming from other planets.
Right.
And genetically creating humans and the people of Earth. Right.
But I'm still working on finding the beginning of my story, because my view is that the Fae preceded all of that. They just were. They were creators in a sense that just having people, having aliens come and do, various manipulations with us. It's way before that, way before that. However, I will also say that all of the etymological evidence that I presented is, and you can't, there's tons of that. You can't get all of that in a video. What I did was tell the story, because honestly, people fall asleep when you're presenting the scientific evidence. Unless
but the story's beautiful. Like, I loved the story. Yeah. It caught me, and I was just like, you start thinking about this information, the legends, all of a sudden you see them differently, and you go, isn't that interesting? Right.
So briefly, because I don't want to ruin it for anybody, because like I said, the bardic tales are initiation stories. They're layers. And at first I encountered this story called the Battle of Moytura, which most people, even my friend Maria Wheatley, had never heard of that tale. And it's gorgeous. And I invite you to look up the tale. I invite you to look up people who are actually telling the tale. There's a fellow called Robin Williamson who did this tale at Megalithomania in 2009, which is the first place I ever heard the story told. Once you hear an oral history, you have been affected. You have received, you know? And so I did, this is the tale that I started to unpack, and I'm still unpacking. And it first struck me as a landing story. It still strikes me as a landing story. I think that you're talking about Ireland. You're talking about the Tuath de Danann, who are still the leading candidates for the original descendants of the Fae. Beautiful, beautiful story. Yep. And the Fomorans, which in my view, I feel that to myself anyway, I've satisfactorily convinced myself that this is the Draco landing story. This is the one eye to covet, the one arm to grasp, the one leg to conquer, or to invade, I think is the way they put it. And it's significant that it's just one eye, one arm, and one leg, Danny, because what I have, convinced myself, I like to say I've convinced myself, and then to the rest of my listeners, it could be true. It could be true. But I'm convinced.
Start somewhere. We have to start somewhere.
Yeah. I'm convinced that this is the Draco. I also, through the last couple of years, have come to realize that they separated everything. They separated everything. I had one of my most interesting moments about a month ago on May 20th. Maria Wheatley and I were leading a group through Stonehenge and Woodhenge, and I was sitting on a rock telling, just kind of babbling about the Fae as an adjunct to the tour. And I had to say to my friend Maria, who's an expert in ley lines, a serious expert in ley lines, that I don't think there should be masculine, feminine ley lines. I think they were taken apart. I think that there should be, that it's all androgynous. It's all, and they were just ripped apart. And, she said to me, well, I try to keep an open mind about everything. God love her, But I really have come to but then, as Danny knows, I'm kind of at the end of my story then when I say that. So let's go back to the story about let's go back to the bardic tale, the Battle of Moytura. Yes. My view is that the Draco landing story, they met the Tuath de Danann, and there's a lot of magic in that story. They talk about the high druid, the Doida, also known as the All-Father, Odin, if you will. And so now someone has just Sethicus Bosa just said to me, Odin may be a druid. And I thought, well,
it kind of fits.
He's the All-Father, isn't he? So, and the story of how, in my view, our magic may have been affected, radical stuff, these two groups end up coming to battle. But within the context of this story, there's also the first evidence of inbreeding between one group and the next, right?
Which is
in the Tuath.
And that's a piece that's starting to come out now. Like in multiple, as we talk to different people who have different beginning stories, different creation stories, whether it's the Mohawk First Nations in North America, whether it's the Aborigines in Australia, there's pieces of that are all, and you can the similarities are profound.
They are. They are, and we're chasing them now. We are on our horse chasing them now, aren't we? So yes. So there were two incidents recalled in that story of inbreeding, and one was a Fomoran who actually raped a character called Ariu, who was a goddess, who also stands for the island of Ireland. Ariu was Ireland as well. So you have to hold all of these strands of meaning in your consciousness when you're looking at these stories. Anyway, that produced a son called Bress, and Bress became the king of the Tuath de Danann. He was a bad man. He was a very, very bad man. He was beautiful. Is this not a story we hear all the time? He was absolutely gorgeous, and he was the he was put on a pedestal,
powerful,
and he was horrible. He taxed the people to death, and all of these terrible, terrible things. And then there was another interbreeding between a Fomoran. Was it? Yes, it was the daughter of one of the original invaders called Valor of the Baleful Eye. The guy with the eye in here that could, if he uncovered it, it would destroy whoever was in front of him. So this was like, was this a weapon? Was this a third eye? Was this a weapon and a third eye?
And a third eye.
I mean, was this a third eye at one time and then it became a story of a weapon? I mean, this is how the ancient tales work. You know, they morph over time.
And the layers, like you said.
Yeah, the layers.
Deeper layers as you go.
Yeah. So his daughter, he locked away in a copper tower, and I'm still waiting for some alchemist to talk to me about that copper tower.
Oh, copper is interesting.
I put the invitation out. There's some alchemist. Come on, help me. Anyway, he locked her away in a copper tower, but as is the way of things, Tuath Lad managed to find his way into that tower, and they actually fell in love. They fell in love and had a son they called Lou. Lou of the Long Arm. We all know Lou.
Yeah, one of the famous characters.
That's right. He was the one who could do everything and became a real god in Ireland. They met in battle. Bress and Lou and Balor of the Baleful Eye and all of these things. Subterranean, there's a subterranean druidic tale going on all the time in that tale as well, and that has to do with the Doida. It has to do with the Morgu in her river of blood, and the Doida, the high druid. Right before the battle they were supposed to undertake, went to her to find out what he could. What can you tell me about magically about this coming battle? And there was a bargain struck, as you can imagine. She wanted the blood from the battle. Now, where do we hear that? All the time.
All the time. Take that on multiple layers, right? Yeah. Blood, or the energy, or the loosh, or pick a word.
Yeah, why are we in a constant state of war? So what was it? Was that the price? Was that the price of the information? Was that we were going to, because in my view is that they're describing the original battle and it's never stopped. You can call it World War I, you can call it World War IX, but it's all one long battle that started from this, and the blood sacrifices were the price to pay. And by the way, when I started talking about the Morgu, some say Morgana, some say this, some say that, but you spell it in the first place I came to it, and I'm sticking with it. You spell it Morgue.
Morgue.
Etymology,
like we just keep coming back to these things. These words just slip into our languages, and they tell a story themselves.
Yeah, they do. We tell ourselves the truth constantly. We just don't know how to listen anymore. Anyway, so the Doida decides to go back to get ready for the battle. Obviously, he's going to go to the battle because the magic has to be involved, because the magic turns the battle, and he runs into a bunch of Fomorans, and they decide to challenge him, which is very Irish. All these stories, we're going to throw a challenge at you. And they made him this huge, earth-sized pot of food, and they said, if you can eat all of this, then we'll let you go on your way, and if you can't eat all of this, then we'll kill you. Well, he decides, they said he created a spoon that was big enough for a man and a woman to lay down in, interestingly enough. And he started, oh my God, Danny.
The giants.
That just hit me. Anyway, so he starts to scoop up the food and eat, and he realizes it's filled with animal parts, which apparently is not something he usually ate, because he said it's a wise man who knows the crunchy bits don't spoil the porridge or the broth or whatever.
Yeah.
He wouldn't have remarked on that if it wasn't unique or unusual. So he finishes this whole thing, and he's like this big, and he falls asleep. Well, let's unpack that, shall we? Let's just unpack that bit. You got a big spoon with a man and a woman in it, or as big, and he dips it into food that maybe we don't ordinarily can put inside our bodies, or that we ought not to put inside our bodies. He eats it all, and then the man who represents, and then he falls asleep. The magic falls asleep. Aha. So I think that so you see this tale.
But you could even look at it as a genetic experiment, right? Like the taking in, you could actually look at that and say, okay, don't look at it as food. Look at it as the taking in of other components, i.e. a genetic experiment was done where you start adding things that weren't supposed to be there, or things that there's so, like you say, layers to it all.
It tickles you, you know, it tickles you and usually I always say, and this is you know, I'm having a conversation about this particular bit that's a bit deeper than any I've had before because I'm talking to Danny. It's in the conversation. It's in conversation about this stuff that we learn, that things come out. So we can't be afraid to go out there and just like say whatever we're thinking. So, okay, but he's awoken. Why can't I speak English this morning? He's awakened.
I hear you. Trust me, I'm having that moment myself.
Right. He's awakened by a woman. He's awakened by a very, very young woman. And she wants to prevent him from going to the battle, interestingly enough. I mean, we can talk about that. You'll have some ideas probably. But they're very attracted to each other. She's magic. She's probably one of the Norns, one of the three goddesses, and they lay together. And apparently, there's a place in Ireland where you can see the dips in the land where they lay together. They've sort of got this spot where they think, you know, they say that this happened. And then after that happened, she said, "You won't go to the battle. You will not go to the battle. Will not go to the battle. I'll prevent you. I will be an oak." In your path, I will be an oak in your path every step you take. And he says, well, I will be an axe to cut down every oak. And she says, well, I will be a river, a flood that rises to stop you. And, you know, they have this banter as it goes. And so it turns out that she supposedly is the daughter of the king of the Fomorans, but she's also a magical creature. So you see, there's a lot to unpack there. I also think that it's really interesting that she wants to stop the Doida from, okay, why would this be, Danny? Does she want to stop the Doida from going to the battle so that they lose? Or does she want to stop the Doida from going to the battle so that the one battle where the Morgue reaps her blood sacrifice doesn't happen? Which is it? Or is it both, you know?
Or is it both? Or is it some other piece that needs so many levels deeper that she doesn't want to see the destruction? Like literally, she's like, if we look at it in human terms, and and this is a story that plays out over and over again in history too, where the daughter, the wife, the sister, the son, whatever, sees the devastation, sees the conflict, and says, okay, look, like seriously, this has got to stop. We need to stop this now. And there's how many legends all over the world of these kind of things.
Right. But that goes to the global civilization, which we will get to as well. Okay, so then the second part of that story, which is hugely important to me now, which I kind of originally went past because I knew it was going to be hugely important, and I dealt with it in the third hour of the lecture, was that there was a healer, the Mak'ok. The Mak'ok was the person who healed the king, who allowed the king to be reinstated and Brest to be banished, which was great. He was killed. He was killed by his jealous father. He fell on the ground wherever he was, and 365 healing herbs grew up through where his body was, and each herb grew where it would help. Where it would sort of, something that would help your foot grew there, something that would help your hand.
Something for the liver grew where the liver was. Yeah.
Exactly. And then somebody came in the story and kicked that all away so that nobody knows what heals what. And this is where cannabis comes in my view. As you know, I'm a huge proponent of that particular uber original nutrient. I don't call it anything but a nutrient because that's what it is. And I think that was probably part of what was there that got kicked away. So think about everything that's in there, Danny. You've got the food, something we shouldn't be putting in our bodies. You've got that killed the magic. You've got the original battle that became the modern bloodbath or the constant bloodbath. You've got all of the medicine, all of the earth, our connection to the earth that keeps us in prime condition to be stewards of the earth, really. Kicked away in this story, you know.
One of the things that jumps out on this is, of course, the gigantic, to coin a term, the gigantic nature of these beings.
Yes.
It opens up again one of those little doors to talk about like the giants that were here and definitely played a massive role in our civilizations and in our origin stories, right?
Right.
Spoon big enough to hold a man and a woman to lay in.
Right.
The grove where they laid down in, where it's a massive. These are not stories of someone who's 5 foot tall, 6 foot tall. These stories are huge, and it's another piece. This is another little pieces that just keep coming out more and more right now.
Right. And you're absolutely right about that. And this is another one of those avenues that we should all be chasing. Certainly I am, and I know a few people who are, which is, it's easiest to chase it in terms of the migration out from Ireland around the world, because then you have both archaeological evidence and etymological evidence of huge beings, or beings with, this is the one I'm going for right now, the red hair and the blue or green eyes. It's spread across the world. It's everywhere. And the latest place I found the most beautiful story was tail end was New Zealand. And these people in New Zealand who still live today, who can trace themselves back to Egypt. This is DNA stuff, back to Egypt and India and the Crimea. And I mean, the trail is there. The trail is absolutely there. The thing to keep in mind as well when Danny's talking about giants and what do these people or these beings actually look like is that there is always that myth that they create a mist. They create a mist and you can't see them anymore. That's in every culture, in every sort of magical being, original magical being.
The Arthurian tales. I mean, it plays a part in our lore and our legends. King Arthur's tale, which is kind of a mirror to all of that story as well.
They just put a window dressing on it. Yeah,
they just repeat them. And I guess until we can unpack them, until we can start to see these stories for what the greater story they're actually telling.
Yeah, a couple of things that seem unrelated, but they're pieces to the whole thing are that because we have been brainwashed into believing we only have 5 senses. And our visual acuity, not acuity, but our visual range is what it is at this point in our evolution or our de-evolution, whatever. There are things all around us that we can't see all the time. And some people will say the giants are still there. And who are the giants? I don't know. So this is open to speculation. The other thing that came to me through, and this is what Facebook is good for, folks. The other thing that came to me through somebody who I talk to regularly was that there was it a Siberian princess mummy? The mummy that wasn't found too long ago. She had, did she have blonde hair? Anyway, she was covered in tattoos. Well, the reason that is interesting to me is because when you think about an exodus or a migration from Ireland out to cover the world, to cover the planet, the first place that you would hit if you're going east is Scotland, Wales, England. In Scotland, you have the Picts.
Yeah.
The Picts were covered with woad. They were ancient. Ancient people had these symbols on their bodies. Why did they have the symbols on their bodies? That's fascinating. The Native Americans did the same thing too. And it's because we are little dynamos, and electromagnetic dynamos. And when we dance and when we move, if we have iron and woad worked into our body, it actually increases our energetic abilities and signatures as we dance.
Oh, okay. So try this one on.
Yeah.
Because what we've been talking about in the Unfuck It discussions is we've been talking about sigils.
Yeah. Okay. There's magic.
So we've been talking about the use of sigils, and there is a guy who actually is in Canada right now. Then I'm so bad with names. My God.
That's okay. Me too.
We've been talking about him. My partner, Ben Gross, he brought up a pile of this information. And this guy's talking about using these sigils to actually block 5G, to actually protect in all of against all these different frequencies. So we talk about tattooing.
Yeah.
We talk about the painting, right? You're painting these sigils on. If these, pardon me, these ancient people, I honestly believe that they were much smarter than us in the way of they fully comprehended these things. For them, it was reality. It was, this is how the world is. And they had, like you say, sigils that they painted on their body. They had, for various purposes, whether you were a warrior, whether you were a healer, whether you were a leader, a shaman. These are all pieces to the puzzle. And I find it interesting right now that tattooing has become a massive thing. In the last 20 years, it's gone from 20, 30 years, we've seen, this huge flood of the popularity in tattooing. And it's gone from, of course, like it was just bikers and bad people who had tattoos to everyone. I mean, I see it here in Malta. People walk around and people you would never suspect, and they have a whole arm tattoo done, and they're businessmen. They're businesswomen,
Yeah.
So the one thing we see that the quintessential they, as I call them, always do is to take anything that is happening and co-opt it. Invert it, co-opt it. So is this what we're seeing in the fact of, you make tattooing popular, so what you do is you make tattoos null and void, i.e. people get a tiger tattooed on their shoulder, which has no meaning, to disempower, if you will, the concept of how empowering it could be.
Right, or what you put on your body and when and for what purpose.
Exactly.
And should it be permanent? These are questions, but you have to, I think one of the things that's really important, and this is a subject that we should really, really unpack at some point, Danny, and it's going to take some time, this idea of the body art that is so, it's everywhere. What do you use? Well, I will tell you one thing for sure, and that is that the one thing that's associated with the Fae that's been inverted is iron. Legend, the modern legend, is that you use iron to keep the Fae away. Right? Iron over your door in Ireland.
You put a horseshoe up there because it's iron. It is not to do with the shape. It's the fact that it's an iron.
It's the metal. Yeah, exactly. But as Maria Wheatley so rightly pointed out to me the other day, it was not the ancient Irish who were scared of the Fae. It's the Catholic Irish.
We always come back to that.
Yes.
The twisting of the story. The church takes the story, and you have St. Patrick. Perfect fucking example. All these people celebrating St. Patty's Day, and I'm like, yeah, he was a mass murderer, and no, I'm not going to fucking wear green on that day. The church takes the story, and they've done this everywhere they've gone. On every part of the planet, they take an existing story, the story of creation, or the story of even saviors, etc., and they take it and they twist it to support their structure.
Right. Importantly, it's I think what you put on and when and why. I mean, I've traced in trying to trace these I'm going to call them mystery peoples, which actually also includes the free peoples. Like, I've done a lot of work on tracing the gypsies and their trek, because they were
such an interesting subject. The Romney. The more you look into it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right. And they were master blacksmiths.
Yes, they were.
And this is their rise and their downfall. They were master blacksmiths in the north of India, and blacksmiths were acknowledged to have power, magic. Blacksmithing is magic, and it's alchemical. The iron and everything, right? Mm-hmm. And so not only were they chased out of India because they had this power, they were also kept as slaves they were enslaved in the communities that they went through because the powers that were in those communities needed them to be there, needed them to stay there, they needed to capture the magic. So they took all their rights away from them, took their children, right?
Oh, and who else do we know that plays out? So you have your First Nations in North America. What they do? They took away their land, took away their rights, took away their children.
Yeah.
The Aborigines in Australia, what did they do? Exactly. They took away their land, they took away their rights, they took away their children.
Exactly.
Break the line. The line.
Exactly. And I am super interested in the Rome because they have never been conquered. Not really. They're still, but because they're on the move, because they're always on the move, because they educate their own children, they don't send them to schools, really, necessarily, all of those sorts of things. So for me, this is an avenue of the Fae. I look at that as an avenue of the magic actually still traveling the planet. And you look at the legends of the blonde, mostly red hair, green, blue eyes, traveling the planet, and you find them. For example, I just found evidence makes it sound like I'm digging a hole, and I'm not. I just found stories of these in New Zealand. The government of New Zealand wants to pretend that history of New Zealand started with the Maori, and it didn't. It was much prior to that.
I'm going to try this. The Petaparahi.
Yes.
And that's Ben is one of the ones because he's been all over this.
Yeah.
I tried to say that correctly. The Petaparahi were the white-skinned, white-haired people that came before the Maori, who taught the Maori everything.
Yeah. That's right. And they were covered in tattoos. And the higher up they were, the more likely, as we think it's a Maori thing, it's not. The more likely they were to have facial stuff.
Yeah.
That indicated a very high-ranking, I hate to say king because I don't think that's. I would hope that wasn't
a leader.
A leader or a wise man, a shaman, a druid, a doida, that sort of thing. Somebody who passed down, who carried the information. So. Yes, so so let's talk about the modern tattoo then. What do we use? What is that they use, Danny, to do a tattoo?
They use all kinds of inks, right? And some of them, this is one of the things is my son was actually getting into tattooing back 5-6 years ago. And we started looking at it. And you find that there's some tattoo inks that are really, really bad for you. Go figure.
Right.
But can you get into the original inks? So, for example, in Thailand, when I lived there, of course, the monks do tattooing, and they do it the traditional way, which is like a piece of bamboo with a needle in it, and they bounce it on the skin. And they use original traditional inks that are handmade by the monks.
Yeah.
The other thing that they do, and I never heard of this until I was in Thailand, the monks also do a type of tattooing with oil.
Really?
So it doesn't leave a mark. So, for example, it would be in the form of people would come to the monks and someone is sick in their family and they're doing it like a prayer kind of thing, or a blessing, or they want to get symbols tattooed on them before a major competition, something to give them luck, something to give them health, etc. The tattoos are done in oil. Now, they stay in the skin. That if, for example, if you look at it in the sunlight, you can see the slick shininess of the oil for quite a while before it dissipates into the skin.
Interesting.
But interesting that it's still, they found the importance in the actual placing of the sigil, the element, the picture, the prayer onto the skin. I think that is really, really interesting. And this is an ancient practice. These are the type of practices that go way, way, way back.
Yeah.
You also get into Africa when you deal with tattooing, but scarification.
Yeah.
And I used to know 2 women back when I was very, very young who were from Nigeria. And they were tribal princesses. They were identical twin sisters, and they were tribal princesses.
Yeah.
2 of the most gorgeous women I've ever met in my entire life. Literally, both of them were close to 6 foot tall. Absolutely stunningly beautiful. And they had the scarring, the tribal scars were carved because they were identical twins on the opposite sides.
Yeah.
And that scarring, and I remember as a kid saying to them, like, so, and they explained that this was a symbol of their rank. And as they achieved not just rank, but as they progressed, as they showed their talents, as they became leaders or showed their wisdom, etc., the scarring would be changed to show the world what they've accomplished.
Right. Okay.
Again, so placing it permanently on the skin.
Yeah. Let's not lose this because I want to dive into the ley lines then.
Okay. Yeah.
The ley lines, are they tattoos in a way? Do you see what I'm saying? Did the Fae lay those down? And here's why I'm making that metaphor. Okay, I'm going there to that metaphor because I'm thinking about the fact that the Druids were, and perhaps I'm sure that there are still entities who are capable of doing this. When you have ley lines often meet in a point. There will be a dozen, 24, whatever, lots of ley lines that then meet in a point. All right, one of the ways that we create, or that we were given to create and manifest on this planet, was the original way, which was through frequency and sound. Okay.
Yep.
This is how we move things. This is how we move the goddamn pyramids. I swear to God, if somebody says the word engineer to me in relation to these big stones again, they're going to get it upside the head. We moved through frequency and sound. It's proved.
And moved ourselves. I mean, there's, again, like as in teleportation, portals, whatever you want to use a descriptive term.
Right.
The stories are there. It was through sound, dance, which is all vibration.
Right, which is where the tattoos come in again, because it makes us a better dynamo, doesn't it?
Yeah.
What can be done is that at those points of power concentration, if you vocalize properly or use frequency properly, you raise a hyperbolic tower of sound, and that is a hugely powerful engine, if you will, for manifestation, for creation, all of those sorts of things. And this is what we used to know how to do. I'm sure some still know how to do it. Okay, so the ley lines, and the reason it brought ley lines to mind when you were saying these things is that it's about it's about marking us in ways that allow us to tap into the electromagnetics around us and create or protect or work our magic, basically work our magic. So you have the planet covered with electromagnetic ley lines that can be lifted and manipulated, okay, to create. So in essence, when we start a conversation about tattoos, we're talking about the original power.
Yeah.
Are we not? In many, many ways. And the song lines of the Aborigines, they're just walking the song lines singing.
Singing,
and bringing their power.
Which is the frequencies, etc. One of the things that I hypothesized a long time ago is that it seems to me at this moment that we all have places where we need to be. And sometimes you get to a place and you just know this is the place I need to be, or you can be in a place and be like, this is not my place where I'm supposed to be. It's not right.
Right.
When the Aborigines, when the First Nations peoples walked these lines, some of them would stop and drop off. When they were on their travels across the seas, for example, all the way from Alaska to Hawaii to New Zealand and Fiji, some would drop off because they would get to a place and they'd go, this is my place. I'm supposed to be here. Whether they are the guardians of that node of ley lines, that was one of the theories that we discussed a couple of weeks ago, in that almost the colonization, if you will, of the planet, as people were all of a sudden, the whole tribe is going here, and somebody goes, oh, wait, that place right there by the river,
that's my
I'm going to stay there because this, and then, their little family or whatever, and they start off and the rest keeps moving, following the pathways.
Right. And the Irish Catholics are terrified to get into the fairy lines. Are they not? The fairy lines are, these lines that are of protection, of power protection that fairies trap. Fairies. Oh, another word I want to get rid of.
Yeah. That's going to be hard to get rid of that one. It's been well and truly Disney and all those, they've placed those stories there.
Right. They stay off these lines of power.
And don't go into a fairy circle.
No,
God, never ever go into a fairy circle.
Right. They feel that something terrible is going to happen to them. And in my view, probably the best explanation for that is that there is power in there that we aren't acquainted with anymore. We don't understand it anymore. We feel it, and it terrifies us, but let's also
have these stories, but we have those stories, and we have stories of people wandering into places where they are not, and I think the word you used is excellent, we're not prepared for it anymore. So people unknowingly walk into places of power, they're not prepared for it. And what happens? They have visions, they feel toppled over, they get sick, they feel, because they're not prepared for what is there. Hence you get all these legendary, stay out of the ley lines, because, the church doesn't want anyone all of a sudden waking up and seeing.
Exactly. We also need to touch on iron itself before it gets away from me. A couple of years ago, I was in Australia, and this came from a chemtrails lecture. I was in Melbourne. I did a lecture on chemtrails. I was in Byron Bay. I did my very first attempt at a Fey lecture, which I had no idea how that was going to be like juggling skyscrapers, because it's difficult to organize and talk about, and you know what I mean? But that was my first attempt. And if you
remember correctly, we were supposed to have been done something together in Australia at that time.
Oh, did we? And
then I ended up getting kicked out of Australia.
Was that at the same time?
That was at the exact same time. We got kicked out of Australia about...
Right, you guys were going to come to that. You guys were going to come to that.
We were going to do a big discussion and a big show and...
I completely forgot about that. That was concurrent.
I remembered at this point when you said Australia, I was like...
Yep. So Dan Schreiber, whom I'm sure you know.
Yep.
Or you knew. Do you know he's passed away? Okay, we'll talk about that. Okay, that's part of this story. Okay, so Dan came to Melbourne to hear me talk about chemtrails. And at that point, I was talking about the fact that it was our bone marrow was being assaulted, that strontium was a bone marrow seeker, and that was messing up our immune system, and my understanding of our immune system at that time, which was flawed. And so then I went to Byron Bay to try to talk about the Fae, and Dan had actually been at both lectures, which I didn't realize. I just saw him at Byron Bay. Anyway, so after I'm talking about iron, and I'm talking about the fairies and the Fae and all that stuff, he raises his hand, as he used to do, and he just very casually said, well, you talked about iron in Melbourne too, Cara. Do you realize that? I said, okay, so I talked about blood cells and iron in the blood cells, and now I'm talking about the Fae and iron in the Fae. Okay, so here's what Dan said, and I when I finally got a chance to interview him about a year later, he said, look, here's the thing. The iron in our blood is our memory. It acts like a little cassette tape. It's ferrous oxide. And if you remember in the cassette tapes, how they used to record was a piece of cellophane with rust on it, iron, ferrous oxide, and that running it through this electromagnetic, whatever it was that you make cassettes with, is how we recorded onto cellophane. And he says, well, the iron in our blood is a big part of our memory. It's how we record things. It is, isn't it? And I'm absolutely.
Especially when you consider how many people are anemic at the moment.
Yes, and why are they dropping? Why are they dropping desiccated red blood cells on us? And why are they messing with our blood constantly? And what is the deal with the Fae and iron and all of that stuff? It's interconnected. Now, sadly, Danny, because the man taught me so much. He taught me, if you go on my channel, you can see at least one lecture I did with him. But about a month after he talked extensively with me about blood, he came down with a vicious form of leukemia.
Oh.
Yeah, vicious, absolutely
blood
vicious.
cancer.
Blood cancer. And those few of us who knew about it, he didn't want us talking about it because that gives things power. You know, you don't talk about it's when you're ill, you try not to talk about it too much because it really it manifests the whole damn thing. So he didn't want it talked about, and he was in the hospital for like a year. That man. It was a vicious form of leukemia, and I think it's only been about a month ago that he finally passed away. Now, I have never considered that to be a coincidence, that he was talking extensively about how important the blood is.
Iron and blood and the memories, and then all of us. Yeah, well, as we say, sometimes you get to the point where coincidence just you can't toss it off as coincidence anymore. You just can't.
No. Anyway, so let's talk about the iron. Let's talk about iron and how it's been twisted, our understanding that it keeps the Fae away and we need to have it to keep the Fae away. No, that's not it at all. It's an intrinsic part of the lore of who we are as human beings. His explanation of how the blood is a recorder and how important the blood is and all of those sorts of things was, in my view, my gut spot on, okay? Because one of the primary objectives of the Draco and their human business partners, and that is the best way I've come up with to describe the opposition at this point, is to destroy our memory and, frankly, to destroy the Earth's memory. The Earth's memory is in her water, which is what fracking is about, in my view.
Destroy it, pollute it, change it, mutate it, absolutely.
Yeah. So iron is a big part of the story, and I think it's going to lead us to wonderful places to just track iron around the planet, which is why this culture of the Rome and their blacksmithing is so hugely important.
Well, if you're open to this, Cara.
Forget it, Dan. No, go ahead.
If you're open to this, you're going to have to be prepared for an insane conversation. We should do a sit-down discussion, do a deep immersion. We'll get Ben involved because Ben deals with all the alchemy and deals with all the iron stuff. And the stuff that he's working on in Australia right now is next level. Right. So maybe let's do it and talk about iron. Let's talk let's pick that subject and say, okay, we're going to talk about the use of the iron. We'll talk about the tattooing. We'll talk about the sigils. We'll talk about the use of symbols. Yeah, we're definitely going to pull this together. We will.
Yeah, definitely. I'm completely up for that because that's how it all busts open for everybody. And then everybody's work is enhanced and everybody's work is turned loose.
Yep. And we fire off new thoughts and new ideas.
Right. That's what's got to happen right now. So anyway, so this is my conversation about the Fae. And as Danny knows, I've got 3. Okay, let's also talk about this really quick. It has more to do with the human condition than the history of the Fae. But I have surrendered, Danny. I have surrendered to the idea that people don't read books anymore, okay? They only want what's in front of them on the screen. So what I've done is turn everything on its head because, okay, I have to say that I was very torn for a very long time about putting my information out there because I was sick and tired of having it co-opted and twisted before people even got a chance to encounter it and take it in.
Yeah.
But you know what? There's nothing I can do about that, Danny.
We had this conversation before we started recording. There's nothing you can do about it. All you do is you do your work. Focus
I do my work.
What you're doing.
I do my work. I get it out. People who's supposed to hear it actually hear it. So what I've decided to do, and I probably will continue to do this, is I'm doing it backwards. I'm actually doing pay-per-views of my lectures, which you know.
Yeah.
And then I've made a DVD of the first 2 hours of my Fae lecture, which I actually did live in January for an invitation-only audience on Zoom, which turned out really well.
Oh, good. Very good.
I'm quite proud of the DVD, but in a way, it almost feels quaint now. Oh, look, a DVD. You know what I mean? It's almost like, and then I had somebody say to me after watching both lectures on pay-per-view, this has to be a book. This has to go in a book. I have one book out about this called Guardians of Blood and Fire, The Search for the Celtic Heart, which I wrote with Maria Wheatley, which has all the etymology in it and some analysis of that story. It's out. It's been out, dudes. It's been out for 2 years. People don't go to books autopilot anymore. They just,
you know what the problem is? And this is for me because I love books. And if you could see what's in front of me, it's like massive bookcases just filled with books.
Yeah.
I have no time anymore.
Yeah, that's too.
I love to read. I like to pick up a book that is a book. I want a real book. I don't want an ebook. I don't want to, you know what I mean? I love to hold it in my hands, go sit in the yard and read. I don't have time anymore.
Yeah, that's true. People don't.
Time has become something, and my camera is just doing wild shit today. Time has become something that is going faster and faster and faster. And I joked the other day about the fact of I reminisce about, the good old days when a good book would come out and I would sit down for 12 hours and just sit there and read the whole book from cover to cover and enjoy it. And yeah, gone are those days that we have 12 hours to fucking sit down and read a book.
Yeah.
But for me, I still, of all my ways of getting information, I would rather read than watch.
That's right.
Because I take in information that way. So I can read the words and I can pause and go, go back and read that sentence again. Oh, that's interesting.
Right. Agreed.
Everyone has their own way, right? And this is the problem, is that we're all radically changing.
Yes, we are. And so I will put everything that's in the lectures. And that's the other thing about the face stuff, though. It's coming fast and furious. So no sooner do I have something down, then I've got a whole new chunk that I've got to unpack.
Pieces come in. It's like, crap, I got to add another chapter.
Yeah, and so the best way to do that actually is this pay-per-view stuff. So I've done that. But another thing that brought to mind, though, Danny, interestingly enough, as a sidebar, is we did not get a chance to finish the interviews I wanted to do with Dan Schreiber. And the next thing he was going to talk about was time. He maintains, actually, when I visited him at Byron Bay, he said to me, he turned and he pointed in some direction south of Byron Bay, south, and he said, just over that mountain is where time begins, and it's getting ready to start over, to reset. That's what I didn't get to talk to him about. We didn't get there. And it was really interesting because at that moment I said, okay, Dan, I'll be back tomorrow and we're going to sit down and we're going to have a long conversation. And then
did he happen to mention Mount Waring?
Probably. He something or other.
There is, okay, so this is where we've got to have Ben involved in the conversation because that's his area. That's where he is. He knows this area. So
good.
Ben posted a picture. So Mount Waring is apparently the top of Mount Waring is the first place sunlight hits in dawn, is Mount Waring.
There you go. That's probably it.
And then he tossed a picture over. It was Randy and Emily and Jeff Gates, and Ben and I have a chat, like a private chat room where we throw all of our shit in. And he throws a picture in. And it's the top of a mountain, and I don't know if it's Waring or not, but it's in that area.
Yeah.
And it's got massive significance to the original people, the origines. And the aerial view of it from a drone, it looks like a vagina. Cool. And I mean, you can't not. Yeah. So you talk about rebirthing, and we talk about time being birthed over again.
Does Uluru run under it or by it?
I don't know.
Line.
I don't know. Well, we'd have to ask Ben.
Ben, I'm just going to say to you, when you get a gander at this thing, I'm taking a bunch of people in September to the Untersberg. The Untersberg has 12, it's in Germany, and it's the Magic Mountain, dude. It is the Magic Mountain. And it has 12 ley lines, one of which runs straight through Uluru. All right? They're connected. Uluru is where time begins. They say.
They say.
That's what Dan said. So one of my questions when we go to this on this esoteric discovery journey is going to be, is the Untersberg where time ends? Do you see that connection? The time anomalies are constant on this mountain. Okay. People disappear, they come back years later, that kind of thing, right? And there's this place where the sun hits it called the noon cradle. It hits at noon. And that's where many of the time anomalies occur.
Oh,
so
there's
a huge connection between the Untersberg, which starts with a U, and Uluru, which starts with a U. So, yeah, so we definitely need Dan to think about that. Yeah, I'm opening up the Untersberg because it's been kept secret. Most of the information about it is in German. I happen to be married to a German, so I get lots of things translated that most people wouldn't have access to. So I'm going to be doing some stuff in English about this and trying to open up this mountain. I've got Thomas Sheridan coming out with us this September to talk about the black arts of the Untersberg, because supposedly it's a hollow earth situation, Danny, where there's like a whole troop of SS troops down there somewhere that disappeared into the mountain. It's one of those kinds of things.
One of those kind of stories.
Oh,
but I love those kind of stories. The kind of things I love digging into.
And I think the sacred mountain, Uluru was sacred to the Origines. I think that the Untersberg is end up being the sacred mountain of the Fae, because the legend there is that when Barbarossa or Charlemagne or whatever king, emperor is buried under there, when the raven circles that mountain 3 times, and there's lots of Odin symbology on that mountain as well, then the final battle will occur. That battle will finally be over. That one battle will end. Okay, so those two things are connected. So Thomas is going to come and do like the black arts. I've talked Randy into coming the following year to do the Hollow Earth as part of the trip. So anyway.
Well, maybe we're going to need to do a meetup on this, because I want to throw out Malta.
Yeah, do that, because you know more about Malta than I do, by far.
Malta, you talk about. Now, I have not been able to find anyone, and I will fully admit I haven't done a massive looking. But for the most part, I haven't found anyone here who really digs into the ley lines of Malta.
And Maria, we know for that.
We knew that there must be a shit ton of them.
Right.
More temples, more ancient temples, stone circles.
Right.
In this tiny island or islands than anywhere else in the world.
Right.
More Catholic churches than anywhere else in the world.
Those two things go together.
One thing that we've hypothesized is that whenever there's a powerful ley line, they will put a church on top of it.
Oh, that's
because
real.
They've got to control the energy, right?
That's absolute. Yeah.
So there are 365 Catholic churches on an island that is a population of 400,000.
365, interesting number.
365. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Okay. And the Untersberg, there are 12 ley lines that come down from the top, and at the bottom, at the base of the mountain, there's a Catholic church sitting on each ley line. Okay. They do that. They do that.
We know that they do that. And one of the things most people don't realize is, like, so here, Malta is one of the last places in the world, at least that I know of, that they still use the church bells to ring out the time.
Really?
They tell the time. The bells ring at the 15-minute intervals. So you have 2 bells, and the first bell signifies the hour of the day.
Right.
The second bell rings out your 15 minutes. So it's the quarter past the hour, half past the hour, full of the hour.
Interesting.
So every 15 minutes, all day long, those church bells are ringing.
So you're kept back to Kronos.
All off key.
Of course.
They are all off key. Deliberately.
Yeah. So you're not on your frequency, number one. And number two, every 15 minutes you're reminded that you're on Kronos. You're on Kronos.
Yep, and disturb the frequencies. Disturb continuously. The frequencies are fucked with.
Wow, that's amazing. You need to have Maria Wheatley on. She does research constantly in Malta, and she's a
maybe we need to get her down here, because in October we're going to do another Unfuckers gathering. In October.
All right.
This time I want to get us all from Gozo over to Malta and actually hit and do a day where we'll go around, see the temples. I want to go to the Hypogeum.
Yeah.
Because the Hypogeum, we talk about sound and frequency. Apparently, it is one of those places that when you start toning in the Hypogeum, weird fucking shit happens.
Interesting.
So I want to get somehow, and I have an in, and I'm hoping Francis can help me. I know Francis Alosio, who is one of he's a professional tour guide here, but he's written the best books ever about the temples, and he looks at it differently, like as in throw open the official narrative and get rid of it completely, the Catholic narrative, and pull it out. So I'm hoping that maybe Francis can make an arrangement, because I would like to go film in the Hypogeum.
Fun, do it.
And see if we can do some toning and, see what we can come up with.
Yeah, I'm down. I'm there. I'm down.
It's just a short flight from England for you to get to.
It's no biggie. Absolutely no biggie. Actually, Danny, that reminds me. You remember when I threatened to fly to Gozo so we could interview because our computers weren't going to let us do it? I said, I'm just going to get on a plane.
That was funny. It was like, that's how desperate it got trying to get this interview done. The Cara was to the point of getting on a plane and coming here.
I was serious, dead serious. Why? Because this needs to get out. And because what's happened to me since about mid-December is it's become clear that my narrative is going to be buried if I don't push back hard. If I don't push back hard, it's because I've decided to refuse to have it disinfoed, controlled, my narrative controlled. I'm going to have to go under, which is another reason, Danny was a really good choice to be the first. This is the first interview I've managed to get out. No one knows that damn DVD is out because I keep getting buried, Danny. I keep getting buried. And so to go under, it's one of the reasons I picked pay-per-view, because I thought, fuck it, I'm going to put it out and all they have to do is push a button and they got it, try to get as little interference between me and the information and the public as humanly possible. So I've got to enter their arena, I suppose. Every time I talk about this,
we have to be in the arena. Unfortunately, it looks like the place that we're supposed to be is standing dead center of the arena, and all you got to do is stand your ground.
Yeah. AI walks in lockstep with us all the time. It does. There's always some kind of mirror that's right beside you that's twisting the whole damn thing and turning the whole damn thing. The Catholic Church is a good example. The Bible, I'm sorry, but this is a Draco, inversion. Yep. They rip everything apart. They tear everything apart. They divide everything. This is something that the two things that I'm talking about right now, I say tentatively simply because I don't consider myself to be an expert, not because I'm not passionate about it or because I don't think they should be talked about. The original seed race was not a male-female seed race. It was not a male-female thing. It was not a polarity. It was a unity. It was a one. One is the biggest number. One has the universe in it. We have, and I'm going to say this, Danny, it's going to be radical. I'm probably going to take some shit about it, and I don't care. Our origins were androgynous. Our origins, if you will, were hermaphroditic, although I think that's a little bit, maybe not quite as...
Almost like a co-opting.
That's not really what I mean as much as I mean androgynous. It was a unity, a one, not a singularity. The singularity is that Draco fucking that they're trying to take us toward transhumanism with. That is not what I mean. I mean that there have been epochs since our origins with the Fae where we were all of a piece. We were androgynous, and we will be again. And my view, here it comes, is that we have an organic evolution going back toward that now. We have an organic evolution going back toward that now that could take a very, very long time doesn't matter. It's natural. There's nothing wrong with it, and it's natural. And it is the sacred masculine and feminine all in one package, and they call it non-binary. Okay, so a lot. Yeah. Have you seen? Yeah.
Okay. So here's because I agree.
Yeah. The kids who are out there.
We're looking at the co-option.
Yeah.
The co-opting.
Yeah.
Of everything now. So what do we have now? We have the chemical, hormonal assault. There's no other way of putting it. It's an assault.
Yeah.
That is co-opting that and creating a, dare I say it, a false paradigm of androgyny. They have taken it, and we have seen, we're looking at right now what's going on with the transgender movement, etc. It has been co-opted. And then I've got several friends of mine who are transgender and have been for like 40 years.
Yeah, people don't realize.
Everything that's going on right now, they hate it because they can feel it is not natural. It has been turned into a circus. It has been turned into a free speech mess.
Yeah.
It has been turned and co-opted, and that's what they feel. These are friends of mine who are and have been, like I said, for years and years and years, transgender. Yeah. And they said, no, I don't have a problem with the bathroom. I've never had a problem with the bathroom. This is something that has just been created by them to create a separation, a division. So it's yet another co-option.
Always in the division is where you're going to find the fuckery. Okay. Yep. It's in the division. If there's any division, that's what you're going to find. But what I see, and you're right, Danny, you're quite right. People out there don't realize how many of us in one way or another are really in this realm, whether it's because somebody that we know is trying to evolve, or we're trying to evolve, or whatever. I mean, it's everywhere, which is fine. And what I see, and what I am going to stay with is like this tender little dandelion coming up through the crack in the sidewalk, right? Who says very bravely, little bunnies that they are, who says very bravely, I'm gender neutral. You know? But they're assaulted from all sides.
All sides.
And the circus around them with the division that you're talking about, that's transhumanistic, and that's been developed to obscure a rather
the natural,
normal, beautiful evolution. And so what I see, Danny, and I always take the opportunity to talk about this a little bit now, is what I see is, you know, people generally speaking in their 20s maybe now who are trying to proceed with this evolution, and yet they've been attacked by vaccines, and they've been attacked by the chemicals in the water and the chemicals in the air and all of that.
Genetically modified foods and
and yet that little dandelion is still trying to come up through the sidewalk, and I have to applaud the bravery, or at least the perseverance of these people. And what made me turn the corner is I got really sick and tired of seeing people little ones, you know, like maybe 16, 17, 18 years old, trying to be quite brave about what they were saying, and then just watching hyenas, you know, jackals, come after their
vultures and hyenas. Yes, exactly.
And just take it apart like that wasn't a human being. You know, I'm over that. I am not ever going to be okay with that anymore. There was one person, and by the way, if the Fae were androgynous, they was the right pronoun, folks. Okay, was it not? Okay, so there was one person who did a little poster. They were probably about 16, and all they said was, my preferred pronoun is they, I'm non-binary. And you could see they were pretty proud of having made this effort. It was a poster. I saw it all over Facebook with people just ripping it to shreds like that was not a human being. And I thought, you know what? The suicide rates amongst those, that particular slice of the population is astronomical. The depression are astronomical. What the fuck are you doing? You know, why do you think you get to take this person apart? This is somebody with hopes and dreams and wishes and a family, you know, who loves, and, you know, stop this massacre.
The problem is that this is everywhere right now. And I talked about this on the last month, especially in our discussions, the Unfuck It discussions, extremism.
Yeah.
Extremism in everything. Right now, everything has gone to extremism. It's one way or the other way. There is no middle ground. There is no opening for other views. And it doesn't matter if it's political.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if it's national extremism, if it's political extremism. It doesn't matter if it's religious extremism. It doesn't matter if it's flat earth extremism, vegan extremism. It doesn't matter if it's ascended masters extremism. It is playing out now on a scale that is epic.
Yeah.
And that is the division. That is the divisionary tool. And every time I see anyone posting stuff that goes to the extremes, there's an undercurrent there. There's an undercurrent that you can taste, literally, that is just like, can you not see words you've just spoken? And they're not, it's extremist. And it's all belief. It all comes back to a belief structure. It doesn't matter if it's political, religious, whatever. It doesn't matter. A belief. And that's why I like what we talked about at the very beginning when you were saying we can't hold on to the information. We got to flow with it, because the moment you set it into a structure, a belief structure, all of a sudden your ass is going to get bitten off, and you're gonna come face to face. We need to hold that place of neutrality where we can keep the information flowing. Let the information come in without assigning it a belief, without assigning it a structure that is concrete.
And here you're talking about the beauty of neutrality, which we've been taught is not okay.
Yep.
Again, neutral. I'm neutral. I'm alive. I'm organic. I'm in the flow, and that's okay. That's okay. Yep. This is why the most powerful histories are oral. It's one of the reasons why the most powerful histories are oral. One of the most important things that's still going on in the world is the Vedas. The Vedas are chanted. The Vedas are still, they probably have been messed with. I would think it would be difficult to say anything on the planet has not been messed with. But oral histories are living and changing and breathing, and it's okay, But this is, interestingly, this is where my study of the Fae took me. It took me to this embracing of this idea that I'm learning so much from Danny about, of the endocannabinoid system and the cannabinoids and that original nutrient, and a planet that was covered in cannabis, which it still should be covered in cannabis, and how that is actually in this freaking bardic tale. I believe that is in this bardic tale. We're going to find that in there. And the idea that it's okay to be neutral. It's okay to be all of those things, both of those things, because we were never supposed to be separate, which is one of the reasons we spend our whole lives looking for a soulmate or looking for our other half. Think about what I just said. We look for our other half, meaning we should be whole.
Yep.
We were taken apart. We were taken apart by, my view is, it's by the Draco. I know that there are people who, and I think Danny's got a lot more information about this than I do, because I try not to get into it because I'm trying to stay in my own wheelhouse.
So do I, trust me.
Yeah, but it's all about, the taking apart the DNA and any other alien races that may have appeared. Okay, but if I go there, I'm not staying clean in my own wheelhouse, and I need to be I feel like I need to be save space for what's supposed to come to me about that. So I think Danny knows a lot more about that. However, it's all about taking us apart, separating us. So don't be so freaking afraid when we come back together to become a unity. And when somebody stands up to you and stands up and says, I'm a unity, it's not an accident that they say non-binary. Hello, how does a computer communicate?
Think about that.
Yes.
It's an interesting term. It is a very, very interesting term. It has much deeper meanings than meets the eye.
Yeah. Non-binary, artificial intelligence, which has walked in lockstep with us. There is such thing as authentic intelligence. That's us. That's where, by the way, where the eclipse comes in. And there is artificial intelligence, which walks in lockstep with us. Artificial intelligence would like to cut us off at 2, at binary, at 1 and 0, binary, when in fact we are all the numbers. We are all the numbers. We are 1, which is the biggest number. We are 2. We're sun and moon, night and day, all of those sorts of things, which I don't, maybe that's supposed to be unity too. And maybe, I don't know, I haven't thought about that. We're 3, that's the typical family, or the 3 goddesses, or,
the 3 muses, or pick an analogy.
Pick something. We are 4 cardinal directions, very important to any mystical study. The 4 seasons. 5, that's where sacred geometry starts coming in, and all the way up to our most natural number, which by the way is not 10, that's a money number, it's 12. 12 is our number. What artificial intelligence seeks to do is cut us off at 2, hence the destruction of the family. Okay, that's the 3.
Exactly.
That's 3, and everything that comes after that. So when I see this 15-year-old stand up and say, I'm non-binary, I get all happy about that. My heart sings when I see something like that.
We had a discussion. I have a terrible time remembering what discussions we've had that have been gone out publicly and what discussions are just like private discussions.
Right.
Lately, the latest deep immersion with Randy and Emily and Jeff and Ben and Ann, and we talked about digital versus analog.
Right.
And there's some major, and we talk about time in that terms of digital versus analog. So these are all these little pieces that are all coming together and coming out now. And it's important. It's important.
Yeah. It is. Don't be afraid when somebody says I'm non-binary. They're telling you something.
Yep.
They're telling you something, and you don't understand what they're telling you.
Maybe they don't understand it. Yep.
They may not, because you're often adolescents.
Yep.
Okay. And they don't understand most of us don't understand what's driving us. That's not a judgment. Most of us don't understand what's driving us. But at least they're being brave enough to stand up and say, I'm non-binary. In fact, I'm non-binary because I'm not hooked. I'm not hooked into AI. Groovy. So I can say, you know what I'm saying? Authentic intelligence, right? And this is where the eclipse came in, which I think we should never forget as well last year. Did you do a show on the eclipse?
No, I did not. I took that opportunity to stand back and observe. I was like, I am not going to put my own spin. I want to sit and literally watch how this plays out. And I'm still watching. I'm still, because there was too many pieces there. And I think it's going to be time before we really see the whole aspect of that.
Absolutely. And as my friend Maria Wheatley did point out, they had the same eclipse right before World War I. Okay, she said it was the same thing. So that's not a coincidence. Not that I'm saying there's going to be a world war, because I really don't think that other shoe's ever going to drop. That's just loose gathering. But so please don't fall for that. I mean, I know people who like, Thursday at 3:00 for sure this week. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Anyway, but what I will say is I believe about the eclipse to be true is I was actually sitting on an Earth Guardian crystal in Germany that I didn't know I was going to, about the size of a double-decker bus, Danny. And I didn't know I was going to it, but there I was on top of it, and all of the computer and all of everything went out. I had no access to the outside world during that period of time when the eclipse happened. And then it was explained to me that that was a line drawn in the sand. And I think that's right. I think that's probably right. I haven't heard or felt anything to dissuade me from that artificial intelligence, it's time to choose, which would make it make all kinds of sense that right now the Fae are trying to reemerge to a consciousness that they haven't had to be at for a very, very long time. They married themselves to this planet in ways that we don't understand because they are about this. They are about this planet. They are, in fact, the guardians of the electromagnetic creative energy of this planet. The ley lines, the guardians of the ley lines, and these stories of the Tuath disappearing into the earth, into the mists.
Yes,
I think that's what they're saying. That's what they're saying, and I think that it was not. I will never believe that it was an enemy that drove them to that they had no choice. I believe that it was a choice, and I believe that it was the Earth's choice to take them in as well. It was a mutual choice. It was like, you're come in here now, you know, and so they're wedded to the Earth in ways that we don't understand anymore.
Well, the long sleep is another piece. It's another analogy that plays out in so much lore in mythology, the long sleep.
Yeah.
They go to ground. They go to ground for the long sleep till the time that they come again.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yes.
It's an interesting piece.
Even though I consider them to be our seed race, I also believe quite strongly that, like any other sort of non-modern human being, I guess you would say, elementals or any kind of earth power or earth energy, they're not particularly concerned with us. What they're concerned with is the earth. And they know that one of the best ways to empower or save or help, I don't want to use the word savior either, because that's not one of the best ways
loaded term.
Help. One of the best ways to help the earth is to slap us awake, so that we can use what we have, what we're supposed to be using, you know, to mantle.
And look at the earthquakes. Look at the volcanoes right now.
Yeah.
This is, sorry, trigger point. And there's something, and we've talked about this in several groups that I've been kind of chit-chatting with. The whole thing in Hawaii.
Yeah.
Pele.
A goddess.
Angry. She's
Pele
angry.
is angry.
Back, and she's like, okay. And it's really funny because we keep talking about the Disney movie Moana. And when I saw that movie, I was just like, I can't believe they put all this shit into a Disney movie. I can't believe that Disney allowed them to put all this shit into this movie. Holy shit. Yeah. And if you take the story of Moana and you look at it, like, that is kind of what feels like is playing out with Pele and the Hawaiian Islands right now.
Yeah.
There's a piece there. And as we are feeling that macro, if you will, because it's big.
Yeah.
A micro effect in us. And I look at the shifting that it feels like we've been going through for the past couple of months since this really became active.
Yeah.
I have to wonder, or at least throw out the question, is that the macro micro? And it's kind of catch-22. Are we causing it, or is it causing what we're feeling?
Right.
Where is the connection? If there is
a connection.
Yeah.
Danny, can I ask you a random question?
Hit me.
I had the most overwhelming desire to be standing on the Big Island when this started, when the volcano started. Did you feel drawn to that island?
I've been drawn for a long time, and it's become a joke. I've got a good friend of mine who lives in Hawaii.
Yeah.
And we keep joking about the fact of, like, we need to get some money together somehow, because I need to get over to Hawaii. I need to get my family over to Hawaii for a visit, something. There's something there. There's absolutely something.
Oh yeah, heck yeah. Well, yeah, I've often said, and again, this is a random observation, that I could be a volcanologist. That would make my life happy. But anyway, I would like to be over there during this eruption. My family does have some history in Hawaii, and I will say to you, just again, random piece of information. After my mother died and she was cremated, and you guys may or may not, surely they all know the story by now, of my mom being having a high security clearance with the Navy and being run over, and the beginnings of the Sun Thief, remember? So yeah, at the very beginning. Anyway, so when she was cremated, I had half her ashes sent to a priest on the Big Island because she lived there. And he took her to a secret place on the side of Kilauea. And I don't know where it is. and left her there. And I think now she's just part of the lava. So for me, this is full circle again.
There's a full circle going on here.
Yeah, definitely.
Interesting. We get called to places. It's like I said, I keep getting up. 30 years, I keep ending up back in Gozo.
Yeah.
I keep ending up back, and it's not even the Big Island. I'm here on Gozo.
Yeah.
We get called to these places, and that's what I joke, and I said it's like the wandering of the first peoples as they followed the lines and they took their storylines, and they would just find a place where this is where I'm supposed to be. And I think a lot of us are going through something similar to that right now, where you go, okay, well, I'm supposed to be here. I don't know why.
Well, why
are you in London right now?
I know. I'm trying to figure out a way to say this without sounding like an elitist asshole. But you have one has a job to do in the world, whatever that happens to be this time around.
Yep.
One has a job to do in this world, and I have often come to a place and thought, should I be here? And I've thought to myself, and I know it's going to happen here, I've thought to myself, no, I'm already here. There's already one of me here. Have you ever had that?
Oh, yeah.
You know?
And so it's a conversation that's been ongoing for several years now. Yep.
No, there's already one of me here. I'm not needed. So then I go someplace else. I ended up in London because this is a place where I can actually been able to get my voice heard when I couldn't get it heard in the States, Danny. Because in 2000, even as recently as 2012, lockdown, not as bad as Australia in my view.
Oh, Australia.
Oh man, but the United States is under communication lockdown, and so I couldn't get anything I wanted to say heard. But once I got to London, it's like, because this is one of those three capitals, it's the financial capital of poison. Yes, there is an unimpeded flow from here that if you can just piggyback on it, you can get heard, because they don't stop much from coming out of here, right?
Yeah.
So I think that has been the benefit. Now, I don't know that it's really still the same in the States, because since 2012, things have changed dramatically. In 2012, my house burned down for riding the Sun Thief, okay? It's not dangerous to talk about chemtrails anymore. That's just been in 6 years, okay? It's not dangerous to talk about any of that anymore. But
everything shifts. Everything shifts. And time right now is become a strange loops.
Yep.
Loops right now. We go to bed in one place and we seem to wake up and we're in a different place, and what was a major faux pas before all of a sudden becomes, you're in a new place, and it's like it becomes normal.
It's normal.
Even to the conversations that we talk about things like AI and shit like that. If we'd had that conversation in 2012, it would have been like, what the hell are you talking about? And now it's like common. It's so common.
Yeah, everybody knows.
That I'm just going to use the terrible term. Even the muggles are talking about it. You're like, even the people who are not really aware at all are using terms like the Matrix, the AI, etc. It is so in your face right now.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. So anyway, I think I've hit most of the major points that I wanted to hit about the Fae, darling.
So here's what I would like to do. I need you to send me, my camera just is.
What's going on, dude?
It's because I've got very minimal light. I'm backlit at the moment.
Yeah.
I've got a massive window here that I can't cover. So I've got every lamp in front of me lit that I can to try and balance the light. So because that my camera's struggling to capture the light, that's why.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the daytime problem that I have, which is why I've had to set my camera at like the brightest levels I can, which is why I've got no color now. Need you to send me all the links. You send me all the links to the DVD, the pay-per-view stuff, because I'm telling you, everyone, there is some major aha moments that I had when I was listening to it. You're going through the history where you read the bits about the Tuatha De Danann and these stories of the ancient Celtic myths,
the
oral histories, where you listen and you go, oh, wow, because I've just heard a story out of somewhere else, South America, Australia, doesn't matter. And it's a mirrored image. And you go, oh, we're seeing the pieces are coming forward now. We're seeing transparency in a massive way. And so I want people to have an opportunity to listen to the full story, because we've only just touched on just
it's huge.
A couple of small pieces here.
Yeah, it's huge. This is why I said when I first did the very first Fae lecture, it was like juggling
nitroglycerin,
skyscrapers, and I had no idea it was going to be like that. The other thing is that people had come in from the bush, Danny. You know what Byron is like, expecting to hear about elemental beings.
Yeah.
That's not what it's about, gang. And I honor, believe me, nobody.
And I honestly believe that they exist too, but
absolutely.
they are not the same.
No.
So and that is one of those co-options of words and etymology.
Yes.
That has been done.
I looked out into the audience and saw tears in people's eyes, because it's not what I'm talking about. And even to this day, I'm going to say this too, because I think it's important. Even to this day, people think it is, because Danny, you may have noticed that a lot of people are riding the fairy gravy train. All of a sudden, it's fairy this and fairy that, blah, 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 blah. And that is to counter all the real information that's coming out.
I agree.
Okay? That's what it's about.
We see it all the time. They do it on every topic imaginable.
Right.
That's how they handle the information.
Right. Go ahead. Elementals are
there. I have several friends who very much speak to them and have been interacting with them for their entire lives.
Yeah.
But they are not what Cara is talking about.
No, and let's not insult them.
Yeah, exactly.
By calling them Fae, because they're not.
No.
Anyway, go ahead, darling. I'm done.
No, it's okay. So I want to thank you for us finally getting this together. Oh my God, 3 months later.
They can't stop us now.
I'm going to talk to Ben.
Yes.
And I'll talk to you. And we're going to put together a deep immersion discussion on some of these topics.
You better believe it.
Because there are pieces here that need to come out. I can feel that. Like there's, especially when we talk about the iron, the alchemy, etc.
Yes.
There's pieces here. And I think I know the crew to really get into
this. Do it. I'm up for it. I'm down. All right, Danny, thank you. They can't stop us now because we got the train into the station.
Yeah, we got the train finally pulled into the station.
Right.
Okay, everyone. So thank you, Cara, so much for being here.
Thank you.
I will put with this video, there will be a link to RTS Earth. That'll have all of the information, so you can go look up all of Cara's stuff, her YouTube channel, etc., etc.
Right.
And we will be back. I will organize a deep immersion, and we will continue this conversation
Finally, thank God. And Danny, has it been since we did that thing with has it been since we did that multiple discussion since we've talked?
The Untangled Gathering, August 2015, on AI and mind control.
Balls. Has it really been that long?
2015. That's how long
it's been. Well, that's enough of that. We're done. I mean,
no more interference. Fuck that shit. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks very much, love, and I will talk to you later.
Okay, bye. Have a great one.